Yeah, welcome to Ida Shabbat Parashat. Parashat Vayishlah, Avodah Zarah, and Appreciation. That's an oxymoron. But let's see what I'm referring to in terms of a less spoken about segment of our parasha. Our parasha, of course, is famous for the encounter of Yaakov and Esav, of the fight between Yaakov and the angel, of the unfortunate incident with Dinah and Shechem, the reunification of Yitzhak and Yaakov. But there is a small string of Pisukim, a short string of Pisukim, that connect incidents that is very telling in terms of how a person is to approach not just keeping to his word, but having a deep understanding and appreciation and reflecting on life events in order to appreciate Hashem. Sounds simple, but Yaakov Avinu makes it very comprehensive. So we are located, and let's start reading a few Pesukim in Perek Lamed Dalet, chapter 34, Pasuk Aleph, verse number 1. And this is after the incident. They're now in Shechem, is the family. And they have already overcome those who would kidnap Dinah. And with leading efforts of Shimon and Levi, they've ransacked and killed the men of the city, and they took all the spoils of the city. At that point in time, Hashem speaks to Yaakov. Vayomer Elohim el Yaakov, kum ale Bet El v'sheb sham. Let's translate and also make notations of nuances as we go. Hashem tells Yaakov, now it's time to get up and move. You're in Israel, congratulations, but you're in Shechem. I'd like you to go northbound to Bet El v'sheb sham. What does that mean, v'sheb sham? Live there? What are you living there for? Va'aseh sham mizbeach. I want you to build an altar there. To the God, which is me, Hashem, who appeared to you upon your fleeing from Esav, your brother. Of course, what is he referring to? He's referring to the beginning of last week's parasha, where Yaakov was on his own. He was thrust into exile. He was a lonely man. He was on the run. He was a refugee, and Hashem appeared to him in the famous dream of the ladder, of course. At that dream, if you recall, Yaakov Avinu made a neder, and Hashem says, now it's time. Go back to Bet El. That was the place. And you'll make a mizbeach there, which is interesting. We'll get back to that soon. To me, Hashem, who appeared to you and was there to comfort you and guided you and communicated to you at that time and assured you when you were fleeing from Esav, and you were so vulnerable at that very moment. But Sheb Sham is interesting. And I mean, we know why you're going back there, to build a Mizbeach. You're going to pray, you'll make a Kiddush Hashem. Eventually, you're going to get back to Yitzhak Avinu, who's living in Hebron. Sheb Sham, live there, dwell there, sit there. Onward, Pasuk Bet. Yaakov, before traveling, tells his family and the people of his household, Hasiru et Elohei nechar asher b'tochechem v'taharu v'halichu sevotechem. What is happening here? Remove the foreign gods. For lack of a better term, let's try to translate that way. Remove the foreign deities that are amongst you. Purify yourself and change your clothing. What is happening? Sounds like Avodah Zarah almost. How did this get on board in the household of Yaakov Avinu? And then we'll take a family trip to Bet El. Now he's very articulate. I'll make him mizbeach to the God who answered me in the day of my troubles and was with me throughout the path of life over the past 22 years, the time that I left Israel. And indeed, they listened, they obeyed their father, the grandfather. They gave over all of the, again, the foreign gods, the foreign deities that they were holding. took the form of apparently in ornaments and jewelry, earrings that they had. Vayitmon otam Yaakov ta'ata elah asher im Shechem. Yaakov buried it all. It certainly sounds like avodah zarah to me. Under the elah, as Rashi says, is a non-fruit bearing tree, which was in Shechem. Okay, that's a very, I mean, at least bizarre incident that needs explanation. Now, the next pasuk, Vayisal. Then they start to travel. The fear of the people in the cities which surrounded them as they traveled was imbued in those people's Yaakov. Okay, that's an insight that we wouldn't have known otherwise, because non-action means there's nothing to see. And Hashem indeed clues us into the fact that, hey, there were some peoples that really wanted to ransack them, attack them, ambush them, and they were too afraid to do so. Now, what does that have to do with anything else in the prior or coming pasuk? Maybe we'll theorize. In any case, finally, pasuk Vav, Vayabo Yaakov Luza Sheberes Canaan He Bet El. He gets back to Bet El, which was called Luz, and he renamed it Bet El. Everyone with him. He listens to Hashem. He obeys. El Bet El. Didn't he named the place Bet El 22 years ago. He just threw on another word, didn't he? El Bet El. Kisham and explains, because that's where Hashem revealed himself to Yaakov when he was fleeing from his brother. Okay, we have a lot to do. We've got work cut out for us, don't we? I'd like to point out something that's sort of a bonus discussion that emanates from this episode that comes out if you put a few of the different commentators together. And that is that what you get besides the actual narrative and storyline and what we have to dig into, you get in a manner of symbolism and hinting some of the critical concepts and procedures about prayer. Critical, actual ideas and concepts and procedures of prayer. How so? Well, look, first you have this idea of Shev Sham. We're going to tackle it more in the context of the story, but sit there, go there and sit there. The Ramban says that perhaps that's referring to this idea. Now, he was going to go there. What was he going to do? He was going to pray, right? The Ramban says perhaps that's referring to this idea that he says you have to lefanot hamachshavot, you have to clear your mind before you pray, before you, he says, ledobka ba'el, to cling to God, before you communicate with him. You need a mental clearance. That's just the law in prayer, that one before he engages in the Amidah has to clear his mind. And he was about to go build an altar, and Hashem says, wait, when you go there, before you start serving me and engaging in service and activity and prayer, Shev Sham, just take a minute, gather your thoughts, actually purify your thoughts literally, and then start engaging in the act of prayer. So too, not only does Forno mention this, but he actually mentions a halakha that Shulchan Aruch brings. And that is, you have to sit for an hour before prayer. In other words, you have to give yourself some time before you start praying. And he mentions what Shulchan Aruch mentions, the Hasidim HaRishonim, the early pious people, would actually sit an hour before prayer in order to focus themselves and channel their thoughts in the right direction to Hashem. And that's this V'Sheb Sham. First sit, then pray, so to speak. Nice. Now, he told them afterwards, remove all this foreign worship from amongst you. Hitaharu, purify yourself. V'chalithu sumnotechem, and change your clothing. Ibn Ezra says, wouldn't you know it, on the spot, he says, from this pasuk we'll learn, Shahayav Kol Yisrael, that every Jew, when he's obligated before he starts, prior to engaging in prayer, lamakom kavua liyot gufo naki umabushav nikiim, to have clean body, in other words, v'hitaharu, and to have clean clothing and nice, presentable clothing, as is a halacha, which is v'halifus umlotechem. Look at this, more prayer protocol. And finally, as a bonus point, the Sportino mentions afterwards when Hashem says that you have to go there and back to the place that you originally spoke to me, and you got to, give some gratitude and appreciation. So he says, that's Allah, as the law that we just learned in our breakfast class. In fact, someone goes back to a place that a nes happened, he has to say beracha. Baruch sha'asa li nes b'makom hazeh. That beracha is alluded to in this going back to the previous place and acknowledging what state you were in when you were there. All right. So that's a peripheral bonus discussion. Let's get back to the story. And a lot of difficult things to understand, but I think it all starts with that term, V'shev Sham, and sit there. Hashem was telling what? To Yaakov Avinu. Let's remind ourselves of the original ned that he made in the beginning of last week's parasha. He said, Hashem, if you take care of me, Ushmarani hazeh, Ushmarani baderech asher anochi holech, v'natani lechem le'echol, u'bechel l'mosh. Remember that, Hashem? If you clothe me, if you feed me, if you watch over me, and I'll come back in peace to this place, to the Israel, to my father's home. Well, then I'm going to give you something back, Hashem, also. Yeah. Then I'm going to make sure I'm going to build a monument over here, like he built over there to begin with. He kach even. He built a stone monument, and he said that well, this time this even will become a monument to stone, and I'll give you maaser, and I'll be devoted to you. So he made a neder, right? V'yidor Yaakov neder lemor. It's a vow, a holy vow. So first and foremost, Hashem right now is commanding Yaakov Avinu, kum aleh bet el v'shev sham. Now, the truth is, I'm not saying this on my own, because I wouldn't, but as she explicitly says, as does the Radak, that Yaakov Avinu, this is indicating, juxtaposed to the story of Dinah in Shechem, indicating here that Yaakov Avinu was, on his level, punished for not going right back when he entered the land and fulfilling his neder, his vow, immediately. Instead, he, whatever reason, stalled and remained in Shechem. That incident occurred. Again, this is Rashi and Radak saying it. And whatever happened, happened. And now Hashem is saying, Hajeh, right? As we say. Now it's time. Cool. No. Aleh bet el. V'shev, go back to that place. And in that context, what would Shev Sham mean? Or Haim says that don't Shev until you're Sham. In other words, don't rest. If you have to pay back, if you owe something to Hashem, if you made a neder, if you pledged, if something came out of your mouth, well, don't rest until it's fulfilled. B'Shev Sham. We often, in our moments of fear, of trouble, are saying, Hashem, take care of me, and I will definitely be this for you, whether you made it in the form of a neder or not. When it's over, you better get to it right away. No, I said I'm going to be good. I'll be a grow up. No, you won't. You'll do exactly what you said you'll do right now. Right now, run, fulfill the neder, fulfill the words, keep to the commitment. Okay, that's one way of looking at the V'shev Sham. But there's something else over here. And that is, as some Mefarshim point out, that I really want you, when you get there to Bet El, I want you to Shev Sham. In other words, prepare yourself, but I want you to actually spend some time there. I want you to contemplate there. It's not just going to be a formal fulfillment of a physical neder. Go back, build a monument. Yeah, say hello. Thanks Hashem. No. I want you to take it to another level. Shev Sham. The Amit Davad points out that where does Mizbeach come from? He said that I was going to make this stone into a maseva, into a monument when I get back here. And Hashem said, uh. Now, really, if you follow the story, we actually went back, pasuk that we didn't read, but indeed, Hashem appeared to him when he got there. And in pasuk Yudal, it says, "Vayased Yaakov maseva b'makom asher dibrito masevet avin." He did, in fact, create a monument, and he anointed it with oil. That was fulfilling his neder. So, what is this about? Hashem tells him that I want you to va'aseh sham mizbeach. I say Sham Mizbeach. And the Emek Davad explains that that's what Vesheb Sham is all about. Don't be so quick to build your monument and to fill your neder. I want you first to build an altar. What is the Mizbeach all about? Mizbeach is all about, of course, offering animal sacrifices, but it's all about prayer. That's what Abraham, Yitzhak used it for. They used it to gather people to get closer to God. They used it to preach about monotheism and get people engaged in communication to Hashem. It's all about prayer. I want you to first build a mizbeach before you fill your neder. Fine. What do I do there? Oh, well, I'll tell you what. La'el hanirah elecha, to the God that appeared. In other words, I want you to really think about what happened. I want you to reflect now. Not just I keep my end of the deal, you keep your end of the deal. Thank God I'm alive. Okay, fine. I'll give $1,000 to the shul. No. Let's be a little deeper and more comprehensive, more profound about doing what's right vis-a-vis Hashem. And Yaakov immediately got the point. Now, just fast forward a few Pesukim to Pasuk Gimal, when he told his family, I'm going back, he said, let's make a mizbeach, la'el ha'oneh oti biyom sarati v'hi amadi b'derech asher halachti. That's much more than he originally uttered when he made the vow. And he's now thinking, he's doing exactly what Hashem said. We're going to make a mizbeach to the God that heard me. What does that mean, ha'oneh oti? The Ketav Kabbalah points out that is referring to what's called hashgaha. He says, Sam ein hashgahato alai, who was peering down on me and intervening in my life at every moment. Vahi emadi baderech. When a person is extricated from a difficulty in life, Hashem listens to us. How does Hashem respond? When does Hashem respond? It's difficult. Connecting the dots is a challenge. We do survive. If we're here, it meant we survived. It means we got through it. It means we were answered. When the day comes, or the time period is rolled out, it's not a moment sometimes. It's not just about doing what's right because you said you would. It's about let's dig in now and reflect. Let's backtrack. Let's write a book about it. Let's think about, remember, people got into this now fad, writing thank you Hashem notes and thank you Hashem books. Let's write a thank you Hashem book, right? Let me check my texts out. Let's try to think about the days and the moments and think about the God that was Imadi, that was with me all along at every moment. As the Radak explains so beautifully that what Yaakov Abinu was trying to say, the God that appeared to me, he says, I was Boreach Yehidi. I was a man, a fugitive on the run. God appeared to me, I was nothing. And he promised me, I'm going to watch over you. I'm going to keep you. I'll be with you. I'll be your partner. Think about that. How was Hashem my partner through all this? Think about the mini moments. Think about the tiny favors. Think about Nisecha shebechol yom amanu v'niflotecha v'tobatecha shebechol et, as we say in Modim. The small things every single moment. Can you backtrack? Can you manage that? Don't just fulfill what you said you would do. You have to do that right away without delay. But you have to also go back to Sheb Sham. Contemplate. Think about it. Do the responsible thing. Now when you're in your obligation of appreciation, when your mind is clear, when the dust has settled, really think about what Hashem did for you in a comprehensive and a detailed way. If you want to make a Seudat Hoda'ah, just order from Seudah, make a Seudat Hoda'ah, and someone makes a speech there. No. Your Seudat Hoda'ah is going to be your personal Seudat Hoda'ah. when you're really thinking deeply about everything that led to your salvation, pre, during, and post. That's real appreciation. But Yaakov, got it, and he told his kids, "This is exactly what we're going to do." Okay, now that we have that, let's talk about the Avodah Zarah. What is happening over here? Now, I want you to hear the words of Ibn Ezra, because on the spot, Ibn Ezra was sure, and this is not his style, that to be so emphatic, but to yell out and say, Halila, Halila, Shishkab Hanabim Obedet Elohei Echad. God forbid, as we say, that the prophet Yaakov is with a wife that's an idolater, or children for that matter. It's not what so they took the spoils of war. Within the spoils of war are all types of ornaments and gold and silver that who knows what they were used for. This is a pagan society. Everyone's into paganism. They have on their person Elohim Echad. Now, how do you deal with that? So there's different pirushim as to technically how you deal with it. A Jew does not have in his power. You have avodah zarah in your possession. You can't undo it. It has permanent status. You have to burn it. But before it gets to your possession, if it's in the idolater's, it's in the goy's possession, he can what's called mevatel, he can nullify. According to halakha, avodah zarah. If he discards it, if he throws it away, he's batel, he nullifies the status, right? So they had spoils, right? So whatever that they were able to ascertain that they were discarded, so those were, originally Elohei Echad, but now they're not avodah zarah. Was he warning them? Make sure you take them in your possession, that they're not really avodah zarah. Maybe he was doing that. Like maybe give it to a goy, do some type of sketch and make him nullify it before they come into your possession. Or actually, maybe do they come in their possession and they were avodah zarah, and he was saying hitaharu because you touched avodah zarah as metameh, according to halakha, makes a person tameh. Take any of the above pirushim. The children of Yaakov, the family of Yaakov, we're not worshiping avodah zarah. We're certain of that. And there's a lot of terminologies here, Elohei Echad, and there's nuances that tell us this. But what was he really getting at? Well, obviously, it's I to be holding these things, right? The Kli Yakar explains, it doesn't say Asher b'yedchem, the Elohei Echad, the foreign deities which are in your hands. Later it says, he gave them that which is Asher b'yadam. What he commanded is Asher b'tochechem. Tochechem also means it's part of your being. It's part of your mind. You get affected by it. You're holding it. You're looking at it. You're admiring it. And then he says, it also affected your person, your beings, your bodies. Get rid of that. And I want to fast forward to you a pasuk. It's in Hanan that Moshe Rabbeinu warned the people when they're entering Eretz Yisrael. V'lo tobi tu abal betecha v'hita herem kamohu shakes shakesenu v'ta'eb ta'abenu kiherem hu. You're not worshiping these things. Don't let it enter your house. It's abominable. It rubs off on you. It affects us mentally, spiritually, physically. It deculturizes us. It makes us softly assimilate. These things don't belong on us. So what Yaakov Abinu did is he took it to an absolutely different level. Yes, Hashem, I got the point. I'm not just going back to fulfill my mandate. I'm going back to build an altar. I'm going to pray to you. I'm going to engage. I'll think about the Hakarat HaTov. People of my household, if you want to do this the right way, let's do this as holy people, with clear mind, with holy, purified thoughts and body. If you want to be a person that is transforming, that's becoming more observant, that's clinging to God, that's fostering a relationship with Hashem, you have to also disengage with some of the cultures and habits around us. And it's not gonna happen otherwise. Fuel purity, you will not reach. Getting to a certain level of relationship, you will not achieve. You got to take the Elohei Echad, Asher b'tochechem. You're not idolaters. You're religious people. Yeah, but why is that in your house? Why is that on your wall? Why is that in your mind? You're going to have to purify. So Yaakov Abinu says, let's do this right. Let's walk in as reformed, transformed people. Take that stuff out of your hands, off your hands, out of your household. Now let's go back. Now we've transformed. Now we can build a mizbeach. Now we can pray. Now we can appreciate. And now we can come full circle in the time of my neder and tell Hashem every step of the way you were with me. I realize it. I appreciate it. I thank you for it. You're my Hashem. And that's the story of this episode. Yaakov, the model for us, how to truly appreciate HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Baruch Adonai Le'olam. Amen. Amen.